Merry Christmas, folks. Today in Norwegian is called Lille Julaften. December the 23rd, the day before Julaften, which is the big day in Norway for Christmas. They don't make as big a fuss about the 25th as we do here in North America. But I have several things I want to share with you as we come up to Christmas. And as Doug Ford intends to once again shut the province down just shortly after midnight on December 26th. So just as soon as Christmas Day is over and the wee hours of Boxing Day, everything shut down. Of course, that doesn't include Costco and Walmart. Little businesses being decimated. I was out shopping today, getting a few last minute items. Cousins are coming tomorrow, which we're greatly excited about. And I mentioned the phrase plandemic to the clerk, and the woman at the next checkout counter began to rage at me and tell me how rude I am, and then state that I wouldn't have said what I did had I a family member that worked in the healthcare profession. The fact remains that you would think that she, of all people, would be concerned about a virus that's been used by the Communist Party of China to decimate the Western world. That's why I call it a plandemic, because it's planned by the communists, and now you can see through all these posts that we've been reading recently from our political elite that they intend to use this as a way of resetting the way we govern ourselves and the way we run our economies to build back better. Of course, there has never been a nation under socialism that built anything better than could happen under a free, laissez-faire, individual liberty economic market. One of the things I think that appalls me the most about all of this is its long history. I had an argument with my brother-in-law once about what the war in Vietnam meant. Were they actually fighting communism? And it was my opinion, because they got into bed with communists at the end of the war, that they weren't actually fighting communism at all. They were seeking to create an economic ally with communists, which is exactly what they did. Under Tricky Dicky and Kissinger, they created détente with China and sent the might of American manufacturing abroad. If that isn't an act of betrayal, I don't know what is. I worked in the States back in 2008, getting a small electrostatic painting company ISO certified. That firm coated parts for the military, among other things. And I drove through towns out there in western Michigan. There were ghost towns. Detroit now is a ghost town. The might of America moved elsewhere because of the elite's cooperation with communists who are raping, pillaging, and plundering the economy of the world to build a totalitarian system. So yes, it's a plandemic. I also had a discussion last night with a friend of mine from Niagara, a chap that lives in Welland. Hi, Joe Vince. And I'm not a Calvinist, so I am not of the one to believe that God is no respecter of men. The truth is obvious to any who wish to see it. And we're admonished, as in Proverbs 4:6, verses 6 to 7, do not forsake wisdom, and she will protect you. Love her, and she will watch over you. Wisdom is supreme. Therefore, get wisdom. though it costs all you have, get understanding, from the New International Version. So this is my point. The glory of this universe, the reality of nature, declares God. For people to believe in this system, when it's so obviously betraying them, they're not doing so because they've been brainwashed or, a spirit of witchcraft has come upon. No, they chose to ignore what was obviously true. And that is the delusion that they fall under, which is inevitable when you reject reality. And God himself is reality. That's why the symbol of Christianity is a cross. You have the vertical line, which is the infinite, and you have the horizontal finite line. That's us. And when the finite meets the infinite, there's only one thing that we can do when that happens. First of all, you suffer, because that's what the meaning of the cross is. It is to bear suffering nobly. And then you're struck with awe, because it is impossible to understand that which is infinite. Human beings do not parse the world in such a way. Most of the things in this room right now, I'm ignoring so that I can focus on this little machine sitting in front of me. We are not capable of understanding much, which is why, at this time of year, good to remember that Christ had to come into the world to mitigate reality and speak the truth about it, which is why he's called the Logos, the living word, the spoken truth about reality. The scriptures even claim that this world was created by the spoken word, the Logos, which is Christ himself. Christ makes God understandable to man. And God is no respecter of men. He doesn't care what your social status is. He doesn't care what class you belong to. He doesn't care about your wealth, your ethnicity, your preferences. God only sees you, and you are accountable to him and him alone. That's why Christ had to mitigate that accountability. This is a warning to everyone about what's going on today. I am utterly appalled at how ignorant Americans are of their own system, that they could have allowed this fiasco to take place in the States. I'm appalled that they don't understand, that they don't have the wisdom to understand why America's founding fathers created a system of limited governance, which of course they inherited from Britain. The system is still very British in its functioning, and that you have a legislature, an executive, a legislature, and a judiciary. And each branch of government is to be a system of checks and balances for the other branches of government, so that no one branch of government assumes too much power, and none of them may contradict the Constitution. And it is the judiciary's job to ensure that the executive and the legislature have followed constitutional law. And now you have a judiciary in the U.S. that has utterly ignored constitutional law. And Americans that I've spoken with just today seem to have no awareness of why they have a separation of powers, what the function of the Supreme Court is. No sound philosophy in which to structure responsible, limited governance to create peace, order, and good governance, which is, of course, why you see the rule of law under attack in the States. It's also why you see, and I've talked about this before, the Democrats dividing humanity along the very lines that constitutional law, common law, forbids them from doing. namely by race, creed, color, sexual orientation, etc., 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 intersectionally, exponentially dividing mankind in this way, where again, the Republicans, although they've been as guilty as the Democrats have of getting into bed with communist China, largely they're willing to treat all people equally under the law and leave matters of personal prejudice to persons, rather than creating a system, a legal system, a legislated system that allows for, that's based on prejudice, either positive or negative. There can be no equality of outcome. There's only equality of opportunity. Why? Because God is no respecter of men. It's the Matthew principle. To him, to whom much is given, they'll receive more, and to who has little, they'll have that taken away. It's based on Paretoized mathematics. No two human beings are equal or the same in any other way other than legally before the eyes of God. That we're all equally accountable for our behavior. If one man achieves more or earns more than another, and one woman is more brilliant in school and becomes the top surgeon in the nation, you don't want people graduating from university all achieving the same marks. You want the cream to be able to float to the top. And of course, this cultural Marxist ideology has been used to weaken us and to dumb us down and to make us susceptible to a full, genuine, real Marxist takeover if the U.S. now loses this struggle and returns to a crisis similar to that of 1861, where the nation is divided along the identical lines it was then, with Democrats on one side practicing identity politics and Republicans on the other, choosing to treat all equally before the law and unwilling to see their Constitution trampled underfoot. There's going to be rioting in the streets, if not full civil war. It's time to seek after wisdom. The wisdom to face 2021 responsibly. And the wisdom to understand that in a limited constitutional democracy, such as here in Canada, or in Great Britain, or in any of the other Commonwealth nations, or in the US, because we share these principles, it is up to each citizen to ensure the ship of state is steered correctly. It is up to each citizen to be responsible and answer for their own behavior. There's no magic bullet here. There's no easy way out. We're commanded to pick up our cross and follow him. And there's going to be suffering. I know there is in my life. Sometimes I dread every day. This old body is so filled with pain and crippling agony from my scoliosis and arthritis. Nevertheless, I'm called to suffer nobly, pick up the cross, follow him, and pray that people would begin to seek after wisdom and have the wisdom to let their politicians know that we're not going to tolerate any more of this talk of great reset or any more of pandering to communist China. I'm certain that the virus is real, and I'm certain there's some very odd things about it. What I'm not certain about is that it is as deadly as our governments are trying to make us believe it is. Neither am I certain about a vaccine, since there never has been a vaccine for the common cold, and this COVID-19 thing is a version of the common cold. We have to face these things ourselves and quit looking for a savior to come in the form of the orange man, Donald Trump. I am neither for nor against Donald Trump. It's not the point. The point is that America is in a constitutional crisis, and that's what matters. And the point is that Canada is in much the same place, because whatever happens in the States is going to happen here. And I'm seeing it happen all throughout the Western world. I'm seeing the same darn thing in Norway, where her leaders are selling her national interests out to the EU, even after Norway voted nigh to EU. They still conspired with them. Her leaders did. Well, Merry Christmas, folks. I hope you have a wonderful Yule season. And I hope you'll think and pray about where we're headed in the new year, and take responsibility and accountability for yourself. Get a hold of your members of parliament, members of provincial parliament, your congressmen and your senators, and tell them you're not going to put up with their nonsense. And I pray that there be some way that the Supreme Court be held accountable for trashing the American Constitution. Merry Christmas.